Welcome to the Excel Bootcamp. Today's video is going to talk about cell block navigation, selection shortcuts, and some pro tips for charting. So let's get started. Cell block navigation is nothing to do with the prisons. That's a little Huntsville joke. It has everything to do with working within a data block in Excel. So if I want to move right, left, up and down, I can use the arrow keys on my keyboard. Or if I hold the control key down, I can go to the end of adjacent cells. If I'm in an open area and I hit control right, I go all the way to the right of the whole spreadsheet. If I go down, I go all the way to the bottom, down to 1,000,000 rows. But if I'm within a data set and I use control arrows, I can go control right, control down, control left, control up, and move around the whole block. If I hit control home, I go to cell A1 on any sheet. If I hit control page down, I can navigate from sheet to sheet. And if I hit control end on a sheet, it goes all the way to the bottom where the data ends. And this doesn't pay attention to contiguous data. It goes to the lowest right data cell. If I want to get back to A1, I hit control home. Now this is handy in terms of selecting data. So for selecting data, if I'm in a particular data block, I can add the shift key, so I can hold control, shift, right arrow, and down arrow, and I select the whole data block. If I just want to select the first two columns, I can hold shift, right arrow, then add control. I keep shift pressed and add control and go down. And that allows me to select just the first two columns of data. If I wanted to do that for the first three columns of data, I hold shift down, go right to, and keeping shift held down, I add control and go down arrow. So my key presses are press shift and hold, press the right arrow 3 times, and then press control and hold in addition to shift and go down. Now if I lift up in any one of those times, if I press shift and control and right and then I let go, that's okay. I got to push control and shift again and down, and it will select. So this is a way to select groups of data within the sheet. Now if I wanted to plot, now you may ask the question, why can't I just select the data? And you can do that. If you can see the data, and if it's just a few rows, it's not a problem. But if we have 106 rows, then we've got a problem. If I want to select this first set of data, I have to do this, and that is ridiculous. It's not an efficient way to work. Just selecting 109 rows took that long. If I use my control keys, I've selected 3 columns of data. So that's the way to efficiently select data. Next, I'd like to talk about charting and show you some pro tips when it comes to charting multiple sets of data on a single chart. So let's use our newfound shift tools and select the first 3 wave functions to plot. So I used shift and control and down and selected those. I'm going to come up and do insert, and I'm going to select this XY scatter with straight lines because I have quite a few data points. If I use markers, it's just too busy pointing with using all of those markers. If I have markers with lines, you can't even see the lines. And so when you have this large set of data points, just use lines only is the way I would say that. This is markers only, this is markers and lines, and this is lines only. These two you should not use, and I'll show you that in a second, why you should not use smooth lines. You really can't tell the difference on this set of data, but use this one when you have a dense set of data points, like in a spectrum, or in this case, where wave functions. So I select that. Now Excel does something when I've selected the data, I'm way down in the 100s in terms of rows, and it's really tedious to try to scoot this chart all the way to the top. So don't even try that. Just with the chart selected, and if somehow you click somewhere else, click the chart one time, you've got it selected, hit Control X, that cuts the chart. Control Home moves to A1, and Control V pastes that chart up at the top of the page. And so that's a very quick way, a pro tip for moving that chart to the top of the page. Very helpful when you have a spectrum with 2,000 data points. So you're down at row 2,000 and you're going to try to drag that chart all the way up to row 1. You don't want to do that. So cut the chart, move to cell A1 with Control Home, and then hit Control V to paste that chart back onto the sheet. So that's a quick way to work with the charts. One thing that's also interesting is let's look at the parts of these data sets. You can come up here and see in this formula for Series 1, it's Series 1 shown here. It's got the series label, which is Psi B4, okay, for that cell, and then it's got the X values here in column A and the Y values in column B. Sometimes it's helpful to just edit these numbers. If you needed to go down to row 1000, you could add another 0 here between the 105. Next, I'd like to show you the problems with using the smoothed line for an XY scatter plot. So I've labeled this sheet not okay. Okay, what we have here is just a random formula that I've made. It's got some random numbers in there to generate some noise. And there's shown here are two ways to draw a line through this data. The green way, green for good, the green way is actually an equation here. It's a polynomial fit. If you want to know how to do a trend line, first of all, you just come up here. Let's delete this. No, let's leave it because I want the colors to stay. But I select the data I want to add a trend line to, come up to the plus, and click trend line. And I always like to hit this little arrow and do more options. So I get this pane over here where I can select whether it's an exponential, a linear, logarithmic, or polynomial. And so I can see what a linear fit would do to this line. I can come down here and display the equation. So that's the linear equation that goes through those data points. This green one is showing a cubic equation that goes through those data points. You see the cubic trend fits the data better than a linear trend because it's not a linear set of data necessarily. But notice the red line is the spline function that is associated with the smoothed curve. And you do not know the equation for that red line, but you know the equation for this dashed blue line and for the green line. So if you're going to draw a line through your data, it better be one of these trend lines to which you know the equation. I also, just for grins, put this function in terms of random so I can hit F9 and update the data. And here's an example where the data is all over the place. Yes, the red line goes through the data, but you don't know what the function is for that red line. You do know the function for the green and for the blue lines. So if you're going to draw a line on a graph, go ahead and use the trend line and display the equation and display the R-squared value. This is a measure of the percentage of the data that's fitted by this model. So it's about 95% of the scatter in the data is captured by this quadratic equation. Here we have the random numbers all came in pretty low, and so here we have a pretty nice fit. Here not so nice. So this is an okay way to display the data. Sometimes you just want to have a line drawn between your data points just to draw the eye. If you've got a lot of data from different series and they overlap, sometimes you want to connect them with a green line and a blue line and a red line. And so that's okay as long as you don't use the smooth line. Use the one that just connects the data points with a linear interpolation. So any two data points defines a line, and so I can come up with the equation between these two data points if I had to. So this is also an okay way to draw a line on a graph. Okay, till next time.